everything is energy. Everything's energy. Albert Einstein says that everything's energy, and that's all there is to it. So I'm excited to share this information with you. I will tell you that despite me being a filmmaker and having made a film, a lot of people assume that, I'm very clever or very tech savvy. And that is not the case. So please bear with me with connecting all the technology here. It looks like there have been some changes in it since the last time I did this. I'm used to doing webinars, but it's really good to see everyone's faces here tonight and your names pop up on the screen and to feel that energy. So thank you. So the secrets to raising vibration here. And I just told you the quote from Albert Einstein, but Cayce talked a lot about vibration. So this is from the book Auras. Every atom, every molecule, every group of atoms and molecules, however simple or complex, however large or small, tells the story of itself and its pattern, its purpose, through the vibrations which emanate from it. Again, that is from the Aura book from Cayce. So there's so much to be covered in this. And, you didn't see him, but you heard Kevin Todeshi's voice in the trailer going and he's talking about vibration. So we were at the ARE for filming of Going On. We interviewed Kevin. We talked with a couple of other folks there. And, Kevin has a book out. It's called Vibrations. I think you can still get it on Amazon and possibly at the ARE bookstore. But in the 14,000 plus readings that Cayce did, Kevin mentions in his book about 2,500 of those mention vibration. It's on the topic of vibration. And if you're a Cayce student, then he also considers music as the bridge. So vibration, energy, sound, it's all connected. And you will hear me say that repeatedly tonight, that it is all connected. In all thy meditation, Om, has ever been, is ever a portion of that which raises itself to the highest influence and highest vibration throughout its whole being that may be experienced. So that was one of the reasons that we decided to go with Going Om, because for me, Om was part of home. So whenever I have said the word home in the past, it always felt like that was that inner connection with the divine, something greater than myself, God, the source, whatever you would like to call that. But that to me was always the home. And sound has had such a profound impact on my life. I've studied a lot of different modalities. I grew up in Ohio, so finding places to study and get more involved. At that time, there weren't many choices, but anything I could find, I would attend that class, I would attend that talk, and then started going out of state for different certifications. Sound, out of all the different modalities, has always been the one that has really resonated with me. So I got more involved with sound. And, when I started, I'm going to rewind here for a second. When I started yoga, I started Kundalini yoga. And I was told, you have to meditate. You have to have a meditation practice. Why don't you meditate? So I would try and I would try and I would try. And I just could not do it. I couldn't tap into the space that everyone was telling me that I should be able to tap into. I wasn't able to do it at that time in the way that I was being told I needed to do it. What changed everything for me and has absolutely, completely changed my path was when I found a singing bowl. So I don't know if you can see here, but I've got a singing bowl. And if you're not familiar with it, it's a metal bowl. It's made of different metals. And you can hold it, you can set it down and strike it. And it produces a sound. So I had a very turbulent patch in my life with a lot of tragedy and things like that. And I was really trying to find a way to navigate those waters. I wasn't sleeping much. My digestion was very poor. I was feeling very anxious. But I noticed that a few weeks after playing the singing bowl, that I was sleeping through the nights, that my digestion seemed to be improved, that I was more clear and more focused, that I wasn't as anxious as I had been. And it took me a little bit of time to make the correlation that what the change was, the only change in my life at that time, was that I had been playing the singing bowl every night. When I made that discovery, I started thinking, well, how could that have changed everything? And it's because I realized that that took me to the place of silence. So the sound delivered me to the silence. The sound is what brought me to that silent space. So I did more work. I got more involved. I called a bunch of people that were doing this kind of work. I took trainings. I read books. I did experiments with it and did everything I could to learn more about why it had that kind of impact on me. I started working with clients. I started working with groups of people, and the life changes that I saw were incredible. Now, am I saying it's because of the singing bowl and the singing bowl made these life changes? I don't know. I wouldn't say that, but what I would say is that I think it helped people find a space where they could quiet the mind, and they were having a tough time doing that. So they would come in for sessions and the mind was quiet, which then led them to more clarity and more focus on their path. When I went to Thailand, I was brought on to do a series of videos for someone, and we got to work with some elephants while we were there. When I saw the way an elephant responded to a singing bowl, so something a little larger than this bowl here, was able to relax the elephants in a way, coupled with aromatherapy too, that they were able to do wellness care on them. So eye care, nail care, tusk trimming, all with a singing bowl and with some aromatherapy. That is how that documentary started in that moment, because I knew there was so much more to explore. So spent about 2.5 years doing that, exploring sound, vibration, frequency, silence, and how it relates to our well-being. We saw things like the plants, the vibration of the plants translated into music. And a few weeks ago, actually, I was in Virginia Beach with John a few weeks ago for a training. And right before I went, I was so excited to share this with the group, that there was a study that came out that was talking about plants and the sound that plants make when they're thirsty and the different voices that they have. So the differentiation between a tomato plant versus a tobacco plant and how that sounds. We, in the normal human range of hearing, cannot hear that because it's considered infrasound. There are people that have outside of the normal range of hearing that can hear those things. I am not one of them, but what an amazing thing that would be to hear a plant communicating and clicking. We were able to see that through a device that someone hooked up to the plant, that the vibration would send a signal through a wire. The wire would go into this box and it would assign a sound. So, it wasn't a constant, it came and it went, but it's all about the vibration, right? Just because we can't hear it doesn't mean something isn't happening. We also visited, I guess I should probably keep along with the PowerPoint here. So this is the gentleman that introduced us to the plants. This is Peter May Crestone, another beautiful tree. And this is our experience in Thailand with the elephants. So the elephants playing the bowls, seeing how they respond to it. The horses that we went to Chicago and worked with. When the woman with the singing bowl, who goes to this horse farm once a week to calm the horses down, when they saw her come out of the car, they all ran to the fence and they were so excited and attentive. And then you started seeing eyes closed. You started seeing their head bow. Pretty incredible stuff. And then we went to the Green Bank Observatory. The Green Bank Observatory in West Virginia. So the Green Bank Observatory is in what's considered a national radio quiet zone. And the reason it's in a national radio quiet zone is because they have this radio telescope that you are seeing on the screen, a radio telescope, which is listening to the signals from space. So what does it mean to be in a national radio quiet zone or a quiet zone? It means you do not have things like cell phone towers. You don't have things like microwaves, because miles down the street, a microwave could potentially interfere with the signals that this radio telescope is trying to capture. So it made you kind of think, if this microwave down the street, miles down the street, could potentially impact this telescope, then what are these things doing to us? What could they potentially be doing to us? You'll see the gentleman, he's the second one from the right. He is the one we interviewed, and he is just amazing. And he said, there could be a correlation as to these waves in the air, and maybe we should think about having a microwave, think about cell phone towers, things of that nature. There are people in that area that move there called electrosensitives, and they're very sensitive to technology to the point that they feel these waves that we do not see, we do not hear, we cannot smell, we don't taste, and we don't touch them, but they feel that they can feel them and that those waves are making them sick and ill. So they move to this area to be free of those waves in the atmosphere. We have an energy field around us. It's an electromagnetic field. And, some people can train their eyes. And since you're all Cayce fans, right? Cayce students, we can see that he had a book by auras, right? We see an aura here. So some people can train their eyes to see auras. You'll see an example of one here. I cannot see auras with my eyes, but I can feel the energy. So just because we can't necessarily see it, it's great if you can see it, but if you can't see it, you can still feel the energy. We're going to talk about how to do that tonight. So there's a lot going on in this photo, a lot of colors, a lot of different, like segments of them. So on the bottom, you'll see a lot of yellows, lots of blues. At the top, there's a thicker band of color. Now, here's what's interesting about that is we all go through life and things come into our paths. And there's days that we feel like we are unstoppable. There's other days where we feel like, oh my gosh, just please let one thing go the way I was hoping it would go today, right? I think it's safe to say that most of us have had both of those days where we have these ups and then not ups, and there's challenges and then we move through them and we grow. But our aura changes, that energetic field changes as we change. So in this photo, this person could come back a week later, it could come back a year later, and that photo may look very different. So it changes as our energy changes as well. Aura changes, to be sure, to the temperament. That is our friend Edgar Cayce there. So he's saying exactly what I just stated, is that our magnetic field around us, the energy changes, and that's significant in so many ways, not only to our own path, but to that collective consciousness that we are all a part of, that we're all sharing. So all bodies radiate those vibrations with which the body controls itself in mental and physical and such radiation called the aura. I'll read that one more time. All bodies radiate those vibrations with which the body controls itself in mental and physical and such radiation called the aura. So we may say, well, I'm not seeing auras either, Christina, but we are feeling these things. Have you ever been in a situation where you meet somebody and instantly you really don't know them, you just encountered them, but you really are gravitated towards them? There's something about them that just pulls you in. And how many times have you heard people say, there's just something about that person I really like? Or maybe it's the other side of that. And there's something about someone that you've encountered that makes you feel uneasy. Like all of a sudden you feel their energy and it's like, that feels really odd. Or someone gets close to you, too close to you, and you take a step back and they take a step forward and you take a step back and they go forward, and it's uncomfortable, right? Because they're crossing that electromagnetic field that we have around us. When I do body work with sound or Reiki or anything like that, I'm always very aware and very conscientious of that electromagnetic field around the body as I'm moving around the body with different tools, sometimes my hands. I'm always very conscientious of that because that is our personal space. That's our personal space. So we've experienced that maybe with other people. Maybe we experience that in a location. Have you ever been to a location, you walk in and it just feels so cozy. You're like, I just want to spend some time here. This feels good. Or maybe you walk into a place and you really cannot wait to leave. You can't really get settled. You're starting to feel anxious. You don't know why, but there's something about this place that is not resonating with you. This is energy. In the sound community, we have a saying that your energy speaks before you say a word. Your energy speaks before you say a word. And I think that is so true. And when we can look through the lens of everything is energy, everything is vibration, we are here in this form that appears to be human for this journey, but we're all vibrating particles. It's all connected in that way. As Cayce said, the spirit is the life, the mind is the builder, and the physical is the results. And like I say in every training and every presentation, it is all connected. It is all connected. So what you see here is an exercise that I often do with different groups that I'm teaching. This is a grounding bowl. You'll see the feet in it. And this is actually, it's a singing bowl, like a giant singing bowl. And you would stand in this bowl, and you would stand where the feet are in this bowl. And then I would strike the bowl while you're standing in it. So this is Rachel, she's standing in the bowl. That's the mallet I would use. I would strike the side of the bowl. And then I will tell people, I'll tell you what, when you no longer hear the sound, I want you to step outside of the bowl. So when you no longer hear the sound, go ahead and step outside. And what happens every single time is when they step outside, I'll say, okay, can you hear it? Nope, can't hear it. It's done. It's not making a sound anymore. Then touch it. So I have them actually touch the bowl, and they are always surprised how much it is still vibrating. So we're not hearing it, but it is still very much vibrating it. And I think that's a good demonstration to show the power of vibration, that just because we're not perceiving it doesn't mean it's not happening around us. And when we make those considerations on our path and in our world, then it may help us to navigate those waters a little bit differently with a different kind of awareness, that just because we can't explain why there's some kind of shift, that we know that we may not be perceiving it with the senses that we have honed. There are things called ultrasound, which is above, it's a higher frequency above the normal human range of hearing. These are things like sonar. These are things like ultrasound scans used in the medical field. There are infrasound, and those are lower frequencies that we cannot hear. It's lower than our range of hearing for the normal person. They are made up of natural and man-made creations. Some of the natural ones are avalanches, earthquakes, lightning, volcanoes. And you may say, well, I could hear some of those things. Well, you hear them when they've reached within that broad band that we have for hearing. Otherwise, it starts below it, the rumbling below it. And very often with natural disasters, you see reports of animals going to higher ground before tsunamis hit, birds starting to fly irregularly, zoo animals going into their enclosures and refusing to come out well before humans are aware of these disasters coming their way. Sharks go lower in the ocean when there's a hurricane. So are they sensing this? Is their awareness of these vibrations different? Are they more in tune with it? I would say yes, I happen to think so. If there is an animal in the room and it starts acting very different than how it has been acting, it goes off its baseline, then I really take note to that. And I think it's always amusing to me when I see people, I guess for lack of a better term, reprimanding an animal that shares, a living situation with them. And maybe it's a dog barking or a dog growling at something, and they're staring so intensely in the air, like in this void of what we cannot perceive. And they say, stop it, no one's there. Maybe we're just not perceiving it. Maybe there is something there that we are not perceiving. They seem to be more in touch with these kind of vibrations and maybe have different senses than we do in that way. Animals communicate, some animals communicate in the infrasound. So animals like whales, like elephants, like rhinos, like hippos, like peacocks, right? They can communicate over long distances with infrasound. So they're communicating to one another. We're not hearing it, But just because we don't hear it doesn't mean it's not happening. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. So hopefully this is all making sense so far. And I will tell you, I don't know if anybody watches the show Manifest. I just this year was turned on to it. I had heard, I think about it years ago. I think it's maybe an older show. I'm not sure, but I just knew it was something about a plane. That's all I knew. And someone said, you got to watch it because a lot of the things that you teach, I've seen in this show. And I went through and I watched it this year. And one of the things they touch on is everything's always connected. They always say it's all connected. It's connected. So true, right? But they also talk about infrasound and the earthquakes that we do not hear and the peacock communication that we do not hear and how to pay attention to these things. So I don't want to give away any spoilers if you haven't seen it. I don't watch a lot of TV, but it is one show that I was turned on to that I was like, oh, that's really interesting. It's much more than about a plane. And then we have man-made infrasound. So those are like sonic booms. Those are LRAD, which are long-range acoustic devices. So I said these are outside of the normal range of human hearing, but there are people that can hear these sounds. There is a woman in Ohio. Her name is Sherry Edwards, and she has a business called Sound Health. She has spent her entire career mathematically calculating the vocal prints. So your vocal print and coming up with mathematical calculations of discrepancies that she can hear in the vocal print. So she's spent, like I said, her entire career researching these things. And then every time she hears a discrepancy of this sort in the voice, she can tell you that there's this mineral deficiency, this vitamin deficiency, maybe a certain organ needs to be addressed. She is one of those people that growing up as a child could hear the vegetables. She could hear when they were ready to be picked. And she would tell her family, like, when you think you know something and you're like, oh yeah, the vegetables are ready to be picked. This is totally normal that I hear that. You would share that and say, the vegetables are ready. The carrots said they're ready. And, you're the only one hearing that. She had a tough childhood because of that, but her range of hearing is outside. Like she can hear your voice and say, okay, this needs a little work, this needs a little work, this is a little off the baseline. So what she does is she assigns tones. So if you are, for example, at a +4 on something and you're like too high on this end, she'll take, for example, a -4 tone to bring you back to that center bass line. And it's really just incredible and fascinating to me that she's able to do that. We had actually interviewed her for the documentary, but it was so technical. And I think, honestly, someone should do an entire documentary on her. She's a fascinating, fascinating individual. So moving on into what can we actually do? What are some of the things that we can actually do to raise our vibration? And it all starts with self-care. And I know that sounds like, okay, self-care, we know self-care, but it's so important because I think so many times we want to help others that sometimes we deplete our system because we're not taking care of ourselves because we're so busy helping other people. Going back to an airplane, we talked about manifest and how it's about a plane. So I think this is maybe a good analogy here. If you've never flown before, when you get on a plane and before takeoff, one of the announcements that they have in their safety briefing is that in the event that the cabin pressure drops for some reason or changes, that these oxygen masks will fall from the ceiling. And always make sure that you put yours on first before assisting someone else. And that makes so much sense to me because if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not putting your oxygen mask on first, then it's going to really limit you in how much you're able to help someone else. And we even saw that with Cayce. We saw Cayce have his own reading about slowing down a little bit, right? Not depleting himself. So it's important. Self-care, I know there's so many self-care articles and reminders out there, but I think it's really important that we put those on our calendar. And when someone says, hey, can you help me with this? Or hey, you want to go here? Or let's do this. That we stay true to our own self-care and keep those appointments with ourselves. Did someone have a question? No? Okay. Um, some things that could be considered self-care, right, is balancing. So recently, John Van Auken, actually last year, I helped with a meditation class in Virginia Beach. And, I'm always into researching. I'm always into studying things. I'm always trying to figure something new out, trying new practices. And I love doing it. It's fun for me. I love doing it. I love studying spirituality and energy and vibration and all of it. I love it. I'm very passionate about it. But he made a comment and I thought, wow, out of everything that he's sharing, this is the comment that's really popping out to me right now. He said, don't forget to put on that red dress and go out and have fun. And he didn't say it to me specifically. He said it to the group as part of the training. But that was such a good reminder to me for balance, because while researching is fun for me, while exploring things is fun for me, you gotta just let go sometimes and just have fun and just laugh, have a good time. So maybe it's not a red dress, maybe it's a red hat, or maybe it's something else red glasses, but have fun, balance life out. It's the yin and the yang, the yin and the yang, whichever term you prefer to that. Quiet time. Quiet time is so important, so important. And the World Health Organization has pointed out that our wellness is in jeopardy due to noise pollution, that it's a growing concern. It's hard to find quiet spaces. It's getting harder by the day. You go to a gas station, you pick up the pump, a video starts playing. Some checkout lines in store now have the TV screens. It's really hard to find quiet, but we were designed to have quiet time, because when we can clear the mental chatter and just allow ourselves to be and be present, that is such a gift, because so many answers lie within that space, and it just allows our body to reset. It allows the answers that we're seeking to come to us. It is like a natural navigation system within a GPS, helping to guide and direct us. And some people say, I can't find that internal GPS. I can't find that. But then I'll ask them, how much time do you spend in silence? How much quiet time? What do you do to silence the mind? And they're really not doing any kind of practice, or they've tried it and they got frustrated and didn't want to do it. A formal meditation in terms of sitting still and just, breathing may not be the entry point for everybody. Once you do find that space, and then with practice, maybe you find it through sound like I did, maybe you find it through walking in nature. It's very different for everyone, right? So you have to find what works best for you, but finding time to quiet the mind, however that looks, is so important in getting the answers you would like on your path and finding that clarity and that focus. Reducing stress, reducing anxiety is finding some quiet. Maybe it's a massage. Maybe that's a form of self-care for you. Maybe it's a sound bath. Spending time in nature, I think nature is so healing in so many ways, and just hearing the sounds and the songs of nature. I think, everyone is a student, everyone is a teacher. I think nature, the trees, the plants, the flowers, the rocks, the sky, the wind, the water, the animals, they are all our teachers when we allow them to be, But we have to be open to that journey and open to learning, clearing the mental chatter, focusing on the present moment, and really tuning into that frequency. Maybe it's playing music. Maybe that's your self-care. Maybe it's listening to music. There's so many different ways. And as you know, being Cayce students, again, music is the bridge. He had a lot to say about music. If you're feeling, depressed and down, then you want to listen to string music, according to Cayce. Music should be a part of each soul's development. That is Edgar Cayce reading 2780-3. Music should be a part of each soul's development. Again, finding a meditation practice is another way of quieting the mind. I believe it was Cayce that said that when we pray, we are talking to God. When we meditate, we are listening. And these are our fine friends at the ARE. This is in the meditation room. We've got Kevin Grant there and Kara Bloom as our meditators, taking some time. If you haven't visited the ARE in Virginia Beach, I would highly recommend doing so, and then also checking out this space if you have time. Another form of meditation just finding stillness. And what's really interesting, I'm going to go back to this slide real quick, but what's really interesting is look at the faces. So when people come in for a session, I can see their face, and they look very different in the beginning versus how they look at the end. It's like the elephant with the singing bowl I was telling you. You see a difference in the trunk, the way the trunk lies. You see the lines fall differently, the ears fall differently. It's just allowing yourself to be. Journaling is also a great form of self-care. There's so many forms of self-care. So it's finding what resonates with you. When you walk away from that practice, how are you feeling from it? So finding what resonates with you. Self-care can take a lot of forms. Journaling is a great way to get things out. You know, writing down notes, you don't have to keep them. You can take them out and toss them after you're done. But it's this form of release that is so beneficial for us. Yoga, stretching, movement are also great ways of doing this. And I'll tell you a funny story about this photo. So one of these gentlemen used to be my boss when I started studying Kundalini Yoga. And at the time, I mean, this was like 20 years ago. And at the time, I brought these books into work, Kundalini Yoga, meditation. And he said, you can't bring this stuff in here. Why are you bringing this stuff in here? This, you know, everyone's going to think you're into like witchcraft and stuff. And I'm like, what? This is yoga. This is meditation. That has nothing to do with it. So he's like, no, don't bring that stuff in. So then I stopped bringing it in. And through the years, he would always tease me about it. He would always tease me about that woo stuff that I'm into. But then he called like years later and he's like, hey, you know that yoga stuff that you used to be into? Are you still into it? I said, I am. He's like, I think I want to try it. And I said, you know what? I would be honored to take you to your first class. I want to take you to your first class and pay for it. So here we are. It doesn't look like he's having a good time. The teacher's having a great time, but he was having a good time, and I think he now practices it. So those are some of the ways that you can do that. And I will say before we move into this next topic, I do want to wrap it up with the self-care portion of it. Sometimes it's setting boundaries. I just want to put that out there. So, you know, sometimes you'll have people that are trying to, you know, take you off your course. I mean, that's not their intention to take you off their course, but they want to spend time with you, or they need you to do something. And once in a while, you'll have to say, okay, well, you know what, this does call for my attention right now, and go away from what you've planned or what you've scheduled. But it's very important to take your self-care practice. And I like to set dates with myself for self-care. Like I'll put it in my calendar, like this is a date with me for self-care. And I've had friends get upset over that, you know, and they're like, well, what are you doing that you can't come do this? What are you doing that you can't help with that? And I'm like, well, I've got a date. And they're like, a date with who? What is that? What are you doing? And it's a date with myself. But when I tell them you can do that anytime. And I said, I could, but I'm doing it tonight. So it's hard sometimes to set those boundaries. It's hard sometimes to say the word no. And you can still say it in a kind and nice way, like, no, thank you. I'm sorry. I already have plans. But, you know, setting those boundaries, I think, is very important. And setting boundaries is a form of self-care. So clean and clutter-free, another great way to raising your vibration, to keeping that vibration high. So whether we realize it or not, when we are in situations where there is a lot of clutter, what happens is it's visual noise. It is creating visual noise around us. And we may say, no, I'm fine in clutter. But somewhere in there, it's creating some kind of anxiety. So it's really important to clean and keep a clear space, an open space, because I will tell you, Psychology Today wrote an article with 6 benefits of an uncluttered space. And I'm actually going to read this, so I make sure I get them all accurate for you. It is energizing. An uncluttered space is an energizing space. It energizes you, right? Because you're not thinking about the visual noise. It reduces anxiety. It promotes better sleep. It increases concentration. All these things are linked together. They're all connected. There is less stress with less clutter. And research has actually linked it to producing less cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So less clutter, less cortisol, which is a great thing. That's a study done by UCLA right there. It eliminates the visual noise, which I've already said, and then it lightens those mental blockages. Clutter can be heavy. It can be heavy. It can weigh us down. So if you're trying to find answers, if you're trying to find focus, if you're trying to find clarity, it may be good to start with the space around you. When I take on clients, that's one of the things we explore in the beginning is, what does your space look like? And you could say, well, Christina, I have this huge family and that's not feasible for me. Is there one space where you're at that you can dedicate to spending time there and making sure that's a clutter-free space? Just having one place where you can retreat to that is clutter-free, that is clean. So clean and clutter-free is another great way. Quality sleep is a really great way to raise your vibration. So when we are thinking of sleep and we think of the brain, they are saying that they don't believe that the brain is connected to the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system is what helps to detox the body. It helps to clear out toxins in the body. So if the brain's not on that system as it's suspected, then when is the brain detoxing? When is the brain getting rid of toxins? It is when you sleep. So it eliminates that cellular debris that is building up, and it does that when we sleep. So sleep is so important in that way. So you can say, okay, so I need to get more sleep. Well, possibly. I don't know what your sleep patterns are, but I can tell you that what is recommended for a quality sleep. Some steps that you can maybe take and adjust in your practice to maybe just fine tune it a little bit so you can try to achieve a better night's sleep. And that would be setting a schedule that maybe an hour beforehand you start getting ready for bed. So you have a schedule, a routine that you do, and it's your body signaling that, hey, we're starting to go into rest mode. We're starting to wind down and go into a rest and relax mode, a restore mode, right? A repair mode, all of those good things in the sleep period. Having a dark and quiet space to do that is also beneficial. So anytime I have any kind of sound journey or someone coming in for a session, I always put a note out first and suggest to them that they bring an eye pillow or even a washcloth to put over the eyes. And the reason being for that, so right now I have a light in front of me, right? So if I close my eyes, I can still see that, and it's a distraction for me. So with my eyes closed, waving my hand in front of the light, I can see the difference in the shadows. So having a dark space to eliminate any kind of stimuli, having a quiet space for the same reason, so your body can just focus on the resting portion. Another thing is a cooler sleep environment is recommended as well. Avoid eating at least an hour before bed. That's another thing when people come to sound journeys that I suggest, or a Reiki session or anything of that nature, because you don't want, as you're trying to relax and just be and breathe, right? You don't want your body having to work to digest and now trying to relax on top of it. So work with your body. You're one, work in harmony with your body and do these steps to just try to help out, doing your part, right? Trying not to eat right before you go to sleep so your body's not digesting, because when it's not digesting, then it can fully rest, right? So planning these things out. And I know sometimes, these are all things like in a perfect world with a perfect schedule. And I know sometimes you can't do that, but if you do it more than not, then I think you're going to start seeing some differences here. So no electronics before bed. Everyone's so attached to their phones and to their LED TVs and their laptops, So if we can turn those off maybe 2 hours beforehand and allow our brains to just kind of calm down, right? The blue light from these devices, and I know people have said, well, they have these blue light glasses and you can wear these blue light glasses and then it's fine, no problem. But I just feel like you still want to take a break from electronics, unplug the electronics, maybe pick up a book, maybe meditate, maybe do some silent prayer, whatever that is for you, but maybe unplug from the electronics, just give yourself a break from it. And that may help with sleep, because I think the blue light actually throws off our biological rhythm. It actually throws it off and it can suppress the production of melatonin. So it's something to think about. So sleep is up there. Get colorful. Get colorful. One of the first things when people come to me is they'll say like, hey, Christina, I am feeling very down. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling sluggish. I don't feel like I really want to do much. I'm having a tough time getting motivated. And then I'll say, okay, like, this past week, what were you wearing? Like, what colors did you wear this past week? Or what do your walls look like? And then I always recommend for a situation like that they infuse some yellow, some orange, some brighter colors. If they're, very anxious, if they are suffering from anxiety and stress, then I usually say, maybe turn to some blues, maybe turn to some green colors that are more calming colors. So colors have a vibration. They have a vibration attached to them. So here's a question and answer with Cayce. What are my best colors, or does it really make a difference? Each person, each activity, each soul vibrates better to this, that, or the other color. So different people resonate with different colors. Different situations also call for different colors. Like I said, if you're feeling very anxious, very stressed, right? You're having a tough time calming down, then infuse some of those blues and greens into your life to help calm you down. The vibration of them, right? The frequency of them helps calm you down. If you need a boost, then infuse some yellow. Have fun, infuse some yellow, right? Different situations call for different colors. So how excited do we get when we get to see a rainbow? What a spectacular sight to see all the different colors coming together as one. This is a tunnel in Tennessee at an overlook, and I love it's built into the overlook, so the light is coming in through the colored windows, and I just think it's such a cool experience to see that. Color itself is vibration, just as much vibration as, or even more than music. Let's read that again. Color itself is vibration, just as much vibration as, or even more than music. Edgar Cayce reading 3637-1. And then Cayce talks about it right here, right? He talks about it right here. What is the best color for health room walls? The answer, between green and blue. Between green and blue. And if you think about like who really knows how to use color, advertising agencies, anyone that does marketing or branding, restaurants even do this. So, if next time you go into your restaurant, look at if there's soundboards above you on the ceiling, how the walls are. Usually, typically, they'll hire people, sometimes at the higher end restaurants where they have more money to do something with a consultant. And the bar areas, they build so the surfaces actually echo sound. So it's louder. It creates this excitement in the bar area versus the dining area, which tends to be more quiet. But they have more soothing colors in there than they have in the bar area. And there's a lot of thought that goes into putting a brand together, putting a logo together, and putting an advertising campaign together. These guys know how to use colors to achieve their goal and attract what they want. You'll see a lot of spas and wellness organizations using blues, using greens, because it's very soothing. So those are some considerations. So red, the color red, it's excitement, it's strength, it's energy, it's love. The color orange, if you are looking for bravery, success, confidence, that is the color orange. The color yellow is associated with warmth, cheer, happiness, creativity. The color green is nature, balance, growth, healing. And I want to stop here for a second to mention that I started doing this I've been teaching actively for about 8 years now, I think. And I started doing this maybe about 5 years ago, that I would go into a room if I'm at some kind of conference or a wellness panel or something of that nature. I'll stand always in the back of the room. And then I'll just kind of scan the room and just take note of the different colors that people are wearing. And it's been really interesting because there were a lot of blues and greens. And the very last thing I attended half of the room was green, part of the room was blue, and then the other part was mostly purple. And I think it's very interesting because I think that says a lot about what we are gravitating to. Like, are we looking for healing? Are we looking for soothing, right? So green, I told you, it is nature, it's balancing, it's growth, it's healing. Blue is really good for serenity, for creating sensations of space, for trust, for peace, for loyalty. And then we have purple. Purple is great for introspection. It is really great for like spirituality, also luxury, royalty. So that's the affiliation with the color purple. Sometimes, and there's always exceptions to things, right? So sometimes there are exceptions to this. So if somebody had some kind of trauma in their life, and maybe the person that created this traumatic situation or environment had a certain color shirt on, then it may have a different kind of effect. So it's on a case-by-case basis. If somebody affiliates something, that is a consideration to take into account too. But in general terms, you know, colors are a great way where we can boost our energy and our vibration or calm it down, depending on the situation. So I want to do a vocal toning exercise with you right now, if everyone's up for that, because I want to give you some everyday practical things that you can do in your own daily life to help carry this beyond tonight. Just give you some tools for your toolbox. So the vocal toning exercise, and we're going to go back to the colors that we just explored, and we're going to talk specifically about the chakras and the colors that relate to the chakras. And if you're not familiar with chakras or chakras, they are energy systems within the body, and we have many, many, many of them. Primarily, we focus on 7 here in the States, and they run right down the center of the body. So we're going to do a vocal toning exercise for those 7 here in a moment. So you can see in this image here, that's in Virginia Beach, both of those photos are, but I really love on the left-hand side that photo that says feels, right? Feeling something. Like, I think when we can tap into that space of feeling, then we start experiencing the world in a different way. Imagine the body as like a river. So I told you we have these energy systems, the chakras down the center, the 7 primary ones. And imagine there's like a stream, water flowing down the center. And when you see the stream, you are seeing a healthy stream. It's sparkling, it's moving, it's flowing. It's amazing, right? That's our energy system going down. And then life happens, and you know, there's pollution in the river, people are throwing debris in it, trees are falling, it's blocking the movement. Life happens to us, and we start collecting things that are not serving us. Something someone said to us, we're holding on to it, we're not going to let that go. Something that we may have done, a choice that we made that we cannot get over, that we made that choice and we wish we would have made a different choice, but we're going to hold on to that and store it. Like the river and the debris, collecting and preventing the water from flowing properly. It's creating stagnation in the water. These blockages that we hold on to, these things that have happened to us that are not serving us, are creating these energetic blockages within the system. And the longer we hold on to them, right, then they start creating things like inflammation within the system. And then that eventually leads to a dis-ease of the system. So much like the water, if it becomes stagnant, if it becomes cluttered, it's not moving, then it becomes unhealthy, right? Our energy systems need to keep moving. We need to keep working and focusing on them. And most people need some area that they have to work on. And the good news is they always change. They're changing. A lot of people I know through my experience need work on the heart. Some need work in communication, right? Some need work in the root of feeling safe, of feeling grounded. So we'll do this exercise here, And what I want to do is stop at each one and just explain it a little bit for you. So if you're not in a seated position and you're able to take a seated position, you may want to do so for this. If not, and you're laying down, that works too. If you're standing, that's fine as well. But really try to just come with a tall spine if you can, taking a breath in and releasing, taking a breath in and letting it go, and a breath in, let it go. All right. And imagine at the base of the spine, the root, the base of the spine, that we are seeing a ball of light at the base of the spine, and it is the color red, a red ball of light at the base of the spine. It is the color affiliated with that chakra. If you're curious, there are also notes affiliated with the different chakras and characteristics. So for example, this chakra, the base of the spine, which is the root chakra, it's stability, it's grounding, it's trusting your journey. So we will say Lam, L-A-M, L as in light, A-M. So like an Om, the Om. We'll do the Lam. And what I'm going to ask you to do is imagine that light, the red light at the base of the spine, but then also follow the vibration. Follow the journey of the vibration through the body. Feel the vibration moving through the body. Notice where you're feeling it, where you're not feeling it. And at the end, really close those lips as it comes back up. So it'll travel down, Lam, coming back up, and see if you can notice it. So let's do one together. Taking a breath in and release with the Lam. Lam. All right. Normally I would say, how does that feel? But I know right now, I think it's pinned to me. But maybe at the end we can circle back, and I would love to get your feedback on how you're feeling about this exercise. So we're going to move up to the sacral area. We're going to move to the sacral area, which, like the water, is the water element. So right above the base of the spine, lower abdominal area, the color is orange for the sacral. The note is D. And it is for emotion, sensuality. It is flexibility on our path. So when we're breathing in, we're going to exhale with a VAM, V-A-M, V as in victorious. So here we go, breathing in, VAM. All right, so that is the sacral, that is VAM, and you know, yeah, I think I did tell you the color orange, so the color of confidence. Moving up to the solar plexus, and the solar plexus is our personal power system, right? It's that light within. It's what keeps us motivated and drives us. The color for it is yellow, like the sun, right? Bright, very strong yang energy. And the note is E for the solar plexus. So after we breathe in and we exhale, we're going to release with a RAM, R-A-M, R as in radiant. So breathing in and releasing, RAM. Filling it in the solar plexus. Moving up, we've got the heart space, And a lot of people, we affiliate the heart with red. We always see red hearts everywhere. On the energetic side of things, we're going to affiliate the heart with green. So that's going to be the color of the heart chakra is green. So it is affiliated with love. It is affiliated with healing. And the term we're going to use is YAM. Y-A-M, Y as in yum. Okay, so yam. So here we go. Breath in, releasing. Yum. Okay, so that was for the heart space. And I like to do this meditation on my own where I place the light in the different areas with the vibration. And there's times that I feel it in certain areas and other times I feel it in other areas. So I'd like to just kind of take a note of where I'm feeling it because that tells you where you need to do some work here. Our body works with us when we get in alignment and say, okay, tell me what I need to do here. All right, so we're moving up to the throat, and the throat is a big one. The throat is communication, it is authenticity, it is speaking our truth. And it is one that I think a lot of us sometimes, like, it comes and goes, but sometimes we need some work on the throat chakra. And we'll do the Ham, H-A-M, and like think of harmony, Ham, H-A-M. The color is blue, the note is G. So we'll breathe in. All right, so hum for the throat area. Then we move up to the forehead, which is also known as the third eye center. This is our intuition. This is our knowing center. The color affiliated with it is indigo, and the note is A for it. A is the note. So we will release with a sham, like S, like stellar, sham. So here we go. Breath in. All right, so that was the third eye, intuition, knowing, and then the color again is indigo. Moving to the crown of the head, the top of the head, that is the last chakra in this series. The color can either be purple or it can be white, and it can either be an Om or it can be silence that we practice here. This is our connection to the divine. This is our connection to the source, to God, to the universe, whatever that term happens to be for you. The note here is the note of B. So let's go ahead, envision your color, whether it's white or purple, at the crown of the head. Breathing in, we will release with an Om. Here we are, breathing in. Om. All right, so that is an exercise that you can do on your own. So when you think of doing this exercise, you can do it in a couple of ways. You can experiment with it and also make it your own. The colors that are associated with the different chakras, you can imagine a ball of light in that color that corresponds to each chakra as you're working your way up. Try to notice the vibration, where the vibration is going to in the body during that period of time. So think of it in terms of vibration moving things, right? You're stimulating the energy, you're activating it, you're charging it. So just think of a little charge for your system in terms of moving and flowing the energy throughout. All right. And I know a lot of times, you hear food, the food diet. What are we eating? We're so careful about our food and what we're eating. So good mood, good food, good mood, right? They go together here, folks. Hippocrates said, let medicine be thy food and food thy medicine. Let medicine be thy food and food thy medicine. So true. So, so true. So this is another thing that I'll do with different clients. One of our first meetings together is going to the grocery store, and I tell them, bring the list of things that you would normally buy and block out several hours. And they tell me, well, I get my grocery shopping done in about a half hour maximum. So block out several hours. It's going to take that long. And what we do is we go through the grocery store with their list, and I have them look at all the ingredients. And if there's an ingredient in that that they do not know, we will take the time to look it up and try to figure out what that ingredient could be. So food is a really great way to raise your vibration. Great way to raise your vibration. So reading the labels, very important. I try to shop around the perimeter of the store when I can, buying fresh food if that's a possibility. And if you have any kind of farmers in your area, it's really good to get to know who your farmers are, see if they sell anything, see if there's any co-ops close by, and get to know the people that are, sharing food and producing food. So often I think we pick convenience over quality consumption, and it is so easy to do. It's so easy to do. But it's really important to watch what we're eating and how we're eating it. So many different ways. If you've ever picked a fruit or vegetable from the plant and consumed that, it tastes very different than what you're going to buy in a store. You can taste the difference. Like if you like tomatoes or whatever that may be, and you pick that and you try, oh my God, I cannot believe how good this is, right? When it is closer to the source, it is at its peak for vitality. The second it is picked, it is starting to already lose some of that vitality. And then if it is processed, it is very much losing vitality. So that convenience that sometimes we pick over the quality consumption makes a difference. So things to possibly avoid: processed foods, avoiding canned foods, frozen foods, I guess, are better than canned foods, but if you can buy fresh foods, that's going to be your best option. GMO foods, foods that have chemical additives to them. Microwaved foods is on that list as well. Sugars and sweeteners, sodas, these are all things to avoid in terms of vibration. Keep that in mind. Oils like canola oil, vegetable oil, cooked or fried foods are low on the vibration list. White rice and flour, low on the vibration list. Again, read your labels. And if you can prepare your food, then that is fantastic. If not, try to notice if you are in a deli or something of that nature, maybe who is preparing the food. You can't always do that in a restaurant because they're behind in the kitchen, so you can't always do that. But I think there's a difference between the way people prepare food. I've actually been in a deli before where I saw the person preparing the food, like throwing the bread around. I don't know if they were swearing under their breath, but I wouldn't have surprised me. They did not look like they were in a good mood at all. And I saw this and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be consuming that sandwich. Like, I am going to be consuming this person's bad day. That energy is going into my food. So I had to say, excuse me, I'm sorry. I need to cancel my order. I'm really sorry. I need to cancel my order. And I did, because I am very careful about what I'll take in sometimes, but I was not about to take in this person's bad day through my food. I think there's also a difference, when you're cooking, if someone's cooking for you, I should say, and they're infusing love into it. And now I see that on certain labels for certain products. It'll be like, carrots, celery, love, in the ingredient list. So when someone is happy, they're in a good mood, they're excited to share this with you, it's going to taste different, right? There's a certain quality to that is really hard to get in processed type foods, or someone that's having a bad day preparing your meal. So examples of high vibrational foods, examples of how you could kickstart that energy vibrationally, energetically, right? Organic and fresh foods are always a great option if those are available. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, oils like olive oil, coconut, flax oil, raw chocolate, dark griefy leaves, apple cider vinegar is another great one. Water, grains, Himalayan salt, legumes, those are higher vibrational foods that you may want to try if you're looking for a boost in your vibration. On the vibrational chart, raw foods rank very high. Organic plant-based foods rank high. Processed, refined, unethical, and junk foods are very low. So depending on the practice and the situation, like I said earlier, there's always situations that fall outside of the norm. So if you're looking in terms of vibrational foods, this is a good model here. If you're looking in terms of, okay, I'm feeling really spacey, I'm feeling like I'm having a tough time focusing or concentrating, then we're talking about the elements, the work of the elements there. So still staying with the list in terms of the kinds of foods that you're selecting, but if you're feeling kind of spacey, kind of airy, that's the air element, so you're going to need to ground it. So something like maybe that grows underground, like a potato, like a carrot, like a beet, something heavier to ground you down a little bit. If you're feeling too grounded, then maybe eating leafy kinds of foods to help lighten the groundedness, right? So balancing it out through your foods. Our foods can make such a difference in our lives for sure. And this may be curious for you to check out if you're not familiar with it yet. So you can see we talked about auras and the electromagnetic field for people earlier. So they've also done this with food. It's called Kirlian photography. And they've compared different foods, and you'll see like this bright kind of aura-like thing around certain foods and the other one not at all. So things like, let's see, organic versus non-organic have been done with Kirlian photography, raw food versus cooked food, slices of meat versus an apple. That's one that they did as well. Your body will know when you clean out the body, if something you are putting in it is not going to serve it. Those muscle tests, things of that nature, just knowing, your body knows intuitively, like what's going to work, what's not. But it's listening. It's getting into alignment and harmony with the body to listen to the body. And that takes a little bit of time just to get that practice. It's like anything in life. It's all a practice, right? Water is great for you as well. So good food, good mood. That's what we're saying. So we went through scheduling self-care, clean and clutter-free spaces, quality sleep, adding some color to your world, good food, good mood. And now we'll move into flow and glow. Flow and glow. We're talking about movement. Movement is so important. Like the example of the river earlier, we do not want stagnation. We want to keep things flowing. It doesn't have to be like 3 hours at the gym every day. It can be some stretches. It can be walking. It can be maybe it is going to the gym, some kind of movement, dancing, sporadically. I like to just get up and dance, like have these mini dance parties at my place in between work. And it's just, I feel totally different after I'm done. So it doesn't have to be like, I'm going to the top of a mountain, I'm going to hike this, just some stretches to keep the body moving. I think there's a commercial, it's like a body in motion stays in motion, a body in rest stays at rest. So just some flow to the system. An example that I could say, like an analogy to this, is perhaps a car, a vehicle of some sort. If you park a vehicle and you park it for an extended period of time and you're not starting it and you're not moving it, then the brakes will start to rust. The fluids, right, are not going to move, and the rubber hoses are going to start decaying. The seals for the oil will start rotting and rusting. And then when you start it, it's not really going to be a functioning thing. The same thing with the body. You have to keep the body moving in order to keep all those fluids moving through harmoniously. All right, so each celestial body, in fact, each and every atom produces a particular sound on account of its movement, its rhythm, or vibration. All of these sounds and vibrations form a universal harmony in which each element, while having its own function and character, contributes to the whole. So each thing in our body has its own function, and it works separately, but then it also works as part of the whole. So that is seen within our body. It is seen with us. So each of us has a piece of the puzzle, and it takes all of us in that collective consciousness to put that together. So what do you value? What do you value? So we've talked about a lot of different ways, like everyday kind of things that we can incorporate and just make some adjustments on our end and our schedules of what we're doing and what takes priority. But what do you value? When you think of the word value, what do you think of? Do you think of money and finances when you think of the word value? Do you think of time and energy when you think of the word value? Should you be thinking of time and energy when you think of the word value? I think so, because I think if we learned to put more weight into time and energy, what a different world this would be. You can go a lot of places to make money, but once you spend your time, you're not going to get that back. So how are you spending your time? How are you spending your energy? Is it worth it? What's the value of it? If somebody approaches you and they have some kind of snarky comment, or they're trying to be combative in some way, do you respond to that? Do you feed that kind of energy? Or do you just let it go, right? And I think there's a certain point where I'm not saying, don't stand up for yourself. Definitely, there are situations that call for that. But sometimes someone that's going to come at you with something that is heavy or negative is experiencing some kind of pain body on their end. They have some kind of pain body. Someone that is in a harmonious state is not going to come at anybody in that kind of aggressive manner, right? So do you want to put time and energy into, do you want to feed it? Because if someone makes a snarky comment to you and you make a snarky comment back and then it just keeps going, it's like two balls of negative energy and you're just building that energy. Sometimes not responding is responding. It absolutely can be responding. I'll give you an example. Here's the value. I did a job a couple of years ago for a film, and I had done the film that happened right before that. My job, I was in charge of a lot of paperwork. So someone came in to fill out their paperwork, and I could tell right away when he walked in the door that this was probably going to be a little more challenging than other people that had already come in. And he said, wow, why do I have to fill out all this paperwork? The last girl didn't make me fill out any of this. I didn't have to fill this out with the last girl. And someone else was sitting in the room that had worked on the previous film as well. And I said, well, I'm sorry, this is the policy and this is the paperwork if you would like to move forward with this position. And he said, I didn't have to do this before, and just kept going back and forth. And I said, okay, well, if you would like to work, then you need to fill this out. If you do not want to work on this project, then don't fill it out. That's all I can tell you. I'm sorry. So he very gruffly took it and, walked out the door and said, well, the last girl did it. And I said, that's fine, sir. I'm sorry. But if you would like to work on this, you're going to have to fill it out. And he left. And the person in the room said, didn't you work on the last one? Weren't you the girl? And I said, I was the girl. Why didn't you say something? Why would I? He came in looking for an argument. Did I want to spend my time that way? I didn't want to embarrass him. And then I also didn't want to spend my afternoon going back and forth. It didn't matter to me. What mattered was there's paperwork that needed to be done. You either want to do it or you don't. And I think that situation can apply a lot of times in life. A lot of times, my ego could have gotten into it and I could have said, no, I was the girl. And I'm telling you, that wouldn't have served me. It wouldn't have served him. It would have just added to the situation. The value of my time and energy, I didn't want to spend it in that way that day. So it's that simple. You cut it down to the basic factor of what is the core, what is the one thing that can happen here? And let's focus on that. Is it worth my time and my energy? Now, certain situations will probably be worth going that extra step, but that one was not. So what is the value of this? Does it make sense for me to go beyond this? Is this person encountering some kind of pain body? Is that what this is about? Again, time, very, very valuable here. And positivity goes a long way. So I think sometimes when someone is experiencing a pain body and they come to you and they're not being kind to you in some way, it's so easy to respond in a way that is not kind back. But that's not serving you. It's not serving them. It's not serving the collective. It's not serving that model. So I think sometimes, again, not responding is responding. It's preserving your energy. It's how you're going to spend that energy. And it may just be that thing that triggers them, maybe not in that moment, but maybe a little bit later they'll think, wow, I can't believe they didn't respond to that. And then maybe they'll start changing the way they're reacting to situations too. Maybe, maybe not. So I want to do an exercise right now. If you have a pen and paper, or, I know everyone's on their, I'm guessing their phone or their laptop to watch this tonight. So just an evaluation exercise. I think these are really important to do in life. What moments are you finding presence? When do you find presence, and what does that mean, right? When you're not thinking about the future, you're not thinking about the past, you're right here, right now, in the present moment. It could look a lot of different ways, but I think it's important to note when you have those moments. So maybe write down that question. What moments do you find presence? What moments do you find presence? Maybe it's a walk in nature. Maybe you do some kind of activity, like if you run or jog or maybe swim or whatever that is, a craft of some sort, maybe painting or woodworking. I think there's this thing called in the zone, and we see presence in athletes when they're playing. We see presence in performers like musicians and actors, and it's really important to find those activities that put you in the zone of, finding presence. Because the more we practice presence, the easier it is to tap into it in those moments when we really need to stay focused. And like everything, it is a practice. So another thing to know, another question is, are there people in your life that make you feel more energized when you're around them? Are there people in your life that you feel depleted around when you are by them? Now, I will say this, everyone has those days where they need to vent, and you ask them, hey, how's it going? It's going, and this and that and this is wrong, right? There are those days, and people need to get it out sometimes. But if it is happening consistently and you find yourself around someone consistently drained or energized, it is important to make a note of what that looks like, who these guys are in your world. And then you may have to make some adjustments. And you could say, well, Christina, that is my boss, or that is my family member, that is a friend of mine. Then it may be important to establish some boundaries, right? Sometimes not reacting is reacting, like I said. So maybe hear them out, but not respond to it. Maybe try to limit some time there if you can. Who's depleting you? Who is energizing you? Who's inspiring you? The value of energy. We keep sometimes food journals and we note what we eat. So why not keep an energy journal? What places are we feeling like we are really alive? What places do we go to where we're feeling like really low energy consistently? Same with activities. Are there certain activities that you like to do that are energizing? Are there certain activities that you don't like to do that aren't energizing? If that's the case and it's something you have to do, like someone said in one of my workshops that they really like to mow the lawn, and someone else said that they really do not. So my suggestion is, if it's some kind of chore or task of that nature where, it's just part of living, it's part of what you do. There are a couple of ways to approach it, but if it's something that you personally are taking on and it's part of what you do, then maybe put that in the beginning of the day and tackle the thing that you're least looking forward to in the beginning of the day, so then you can move on and change the energy for the rest of the day. But go into it thinking, you know what, I'm going to do this first today, and then I'm moving on from it. So again, feeding emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritual bodies. It's so important. It's not just the diet in terms of the food we eat. It's the diet in terms of what we are taking in, who we are taking in, the energy that we are taking in, because spirit is the life, the mind is the builder, and the physical is the result. It is all connected. So we covered scheduling self-care, clean and clutter-free spaces, quality sleep, adding some color into your world, good food, good mood, value of time and energy, and then perspective. What is your perspective? How are you seeing the world? How are you seeing the world, because change requires new thinking sometimes. And when we can just adjust those lenses and refocus a little bit, or maybe change the lens altogether, then everything changes. We change the way we react to situations. And when we change the way we react, then the world is changing, right? Because we're a part of that. We're a part of that collectiveness. And what that looks like is, how do you start your days? How do you end your days? Are you starting from a place of gratitude? Do you wake up in the morning and you're like, I am so thankful to be awake this morning. I'm thankful for the air that I'm breathing. I'm thankful that I have some movement. I am thankful that I have something to sustain me. I'm thankful for clean water. There are so many things that we can be thankful for. And sometimes we don't recognize how thankful we are until we no longer have them. But there are so many things that we can be thankful for. So how are we starting our day? And then also, how are we ending our day? Are we ending our day in a place of gratitude? Are we ending our day saying, I am so thankful that I got to experience this thing today, or maybe this list of things today? Because when we are grateful, then we will notice that we start having more things to be grateful for. Is it because all these new things are being flooded into our path because now we're practicing gratitude? Perhaps. Or perhaps we're changing the lens and now we are recognizing things to be grateful for, where before maybe we took them just as something that happens and no big deal. The small things. We call things small things in life. Don't sweat the small things in life. The song of a bird. Appreciate the small things. I don't think that's small, because if I couldn't hear the song of a bird tomorrow, it would be very significant. So I don't take any of that for granted. I recognize how fortunate and how blessed that every day I can hear the song of a bird. I can hear the wind or feel the wind on my face, that is something to be very grateful for, because it may not always be there. Hopefully it will, but it may not. So I don't want a day to go by where I don't feel grateful for that. Do you find gratitude in difficult times? Are you feeling gratitude in difficult times? Because that's when it really can change the dynamic, right? It changes the dynamic every day when we start and we end our day with it. But when we have those difficult times, very easy, it's to go off course, right? Nothing's going right all of a sudden. Is it though? I'll tell you a story. Someone I knew, he was helping someone else move. He had a van and they were about 45 minutes away from where they needed to be for the nights. And they went to dinner, they had dinner, they were leaving, and the van wouldn't start. And it was getting late. The van wouldn't start. They kept trying and trying and trying. This van will not start. So now they have to call AAA. AAA is a service that will retrieve the vehicle and then take it to the mechanic or the shop or the dealership. So they had to call AAA. Then this gentleman had to call a friend of his who went to bed early, but that was the only person he could call to come retrieve him, who was 45 minutes away. So his friend came out to retrieve him. So now it's a 90-minute trip for the friend. The friend, the AAA people take the van to the dealership. The friend takes the man and his friend back to the home, or the house, I should say. And then he realizes in that moment that he had used the wrong key. He was so distracted and his head was so filled and moving in so many different directions that day that he had used the wrong key. He was embarrassed. He was upset. He was angry. And he was so focused on being embarrassed and upset and angry that he didn't recognize all of the really grateful things that could have been there, all of the things that fell into alignment. So now, because it was the wrong key, then nothing was wrong with his vehicle. He had just put the wrong key in, or was trying to. So now there's nothing wrong with the vehicle, which means he's saving money because there's no repairs, which means he found this out before they took it into the shop, which saved him extra money. Also, he found out that he had a friend that was willing to drive 90 minutes after his bedtime to come retrieve him. So many things went right to be grateful for. Was it an inconvenience? It probably was for him. But he didn't see the good part of it. He saw all of the things that didn't go right. He saw all of the things that didn't go right. He didn't see that maybe it was a lesson to be more present, to practice more presence. He saw, well, I'm embarrassed and, I lost all this time. So how are you seeing the world? What is your perspective on the world? Are you practicing gratitude? In situations that can be trying, are you saying, well, this figures? Or are you saying, you know what? This is not the choice that I would have made, but this is what's happening. And there's a lesson to be learned here in some way. So I welcome it and thank you for that. What's your gratitude jar look like? What does your gratitude jar look like? How often are you practicing it? I'm going to check the time here real quick. Okay. If we have time on the back end and you want to do a gratitude exercise, then we'll do that. But I think we're going to wait on the back end because I want to make sure that if you have questions, I address those. But I do have a gratitude exercise for you if we get to it on the back end here. So perspective is one thing, and then words. What are our words, our thoughts, our actions? Because they are all a vibration. They are all a vibration. So what words are you using? What is in a word? What kinds of words are you saying to yourself? What is your dialogue, your inner dialogue? What are you saying to other people? Are they kind? Are they loving? Are they compassionate? Are they supportive in some way? Or are they the opposite of that? Your words have a vibration to them. They have the ability to really put things into motion. Same with the thoughts, same with the actions. So maybe it's just tweaking things a little bit. Maybe it's a tweak of how you're using your words. So maybe if you're saying, oh, they're so emotional. They're so emotional. How many people like to be told, like, you're really emotional? Sometimes it won't bother someone, sometimes it might. But people tend to gravitate, I think, more towards if they hear passionate, then that's a slight change, but it feels a little different. Just using different words can change the feeling of it. Saying, well, I can't do that. I can't do that. You're putting that into the world that you cannot do that. Maybe it's, I choose not to do that. I'm choosing not to do this. Choose not to do it. If something is a challenge, maybe looking at it as an opportunity, like I said, or if somebody is being very stubborn, instead of saying, you are so stubborn, now that's putting this, kind of push against them. You're stubborn. That's usually not a word people are like, oh, I'm so glad I'm stubborn, right? Maybe just saying you're very determined. Wow, your determination is very strong, but maybe we can consider this other path. What do you think of that? Life is a struggle sometimes. And I think you can look at that as a challenge, right? It's a challenge for growth. It's a challenge to push you out of your comfort zone to learn new lessons. And sometimes they say that people are either a lesson or a blessing. And I like to think that those are one and the same, because if there is a lesson, although we may not have chosen it, right? It can still be a blessing because it's an opportunity to grow and to learn something here. So again, what are you saying to yourself? What is your inner dialogue? What are you saying to other people? Because it is all part of that collectiveness that we all share. Life in its manifestation is vibration. Electricity is vibration, but vibration that is creative is one thing. Vibration that is destructive is another. Yet, they are from the same source. It is the same thing, energy, but how are you going to use it? How are you going to use your words? How are you going to use your thoughts? How are you going to use your action? Same source and a choice to be made. What would you like to see in the world? What world would you like to see? Are you doing your part to help create that world? Are you doing it through your words? Are you doing it through your actions? Are you doing it through your thoughts? Because they all have an energy to them. We are co-creators. We are co-creating the world, our own world, but then the world that collectively we are all sharing. We are in this together in that way. So are you hopeful about things? Are you that person that always says, right? Your actions. Humankind, when you can be both, be both. How are you contributing? Like I said, I think I'm in Nashville right now, Nashville, Tennessee, and someone said, "Hey, I heard this really cool quote on a commercial yesterday, and I thought I'd share it with you because I think you'll love it." And they said, it was something to the effect of, if you see someone who's lost their smile, give them yours. And I said, I know that quote. That's Dolly Parton, who is all over Nashville. But I love that. I think the world could use some smile. I think the past couple of years have been some challenging times for many people. So, I think engaging, connecting, I think we sometimes are losing that connection. Engaging, connecting, smiling, thinking about your words, thinking about your thoughts, thinking about your actions, looking at your perspective on things. What kind of perspective do you have? Again, it is not about you if somebody comes to you and they treat you in an unkind fashion. And I will say there are times that you need to take action on that, but most of the time it's not about you. If it is about you, if you've done something to someone, if you've done something and they're reacting to something that you did first. But most of the time, it has nothing to do with you, not a thing to do with you. It is something that they are going through. It is a pain body that they are carrying it. And unfortunately, it's coming in your direction. You just happen to be the person there for that period of time. And like I said before, if you can choose love, because that is the answer. Love is the answer. The collective consciousness that we are all sharing, right? We are all a part of this together. We are all a part of it. I do want to read a quick excerpt from a book. I don't know if you can see the book. I can maybe type it in the text later. It is from a children's book, and it's based on a speech that Chief Seattle gave when they wanted to buy his land. And I think this is such a beautiful illustration of the demonstration of how everything is very connected. It's all connected. How can you buy the sky? Chief Seattle began. How can you own the rain and the wind? My mother told me every part of this earth is sacred to our people. Every mist in the dark woods, every pine needle, every sandy shore, every meadow and humming insect, all are holy in the memory of our people. My father said to me, I know the sap that courses through the trees, like I know the blood that flows through my veins. We are a part of the earth, and the earth is a part of us. The perfumed flowers are our sisters. The bear, the deer, the great eagle, these are our brothers. The rocky crests, the meadows, the ponies all belong to the same family. This we know, all things are connected, like the blood that unites us. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. It took me a long time before I could read that out loud, because every time I would read it, I would start crying. And I didn't want to cry in front of a training that I was giving, but now I'm able to read it. And what's interesting is there will be certain people in the training that come to tears. I think it's a very powerful thing. But it's all about connection. It is all about connection because it's all connected. So a couple of things just to recap. Self-care, clean and clutter-free spaces, really finding quality sleep, infusing color into your life as the situation calls for it. The foods that you're eating, good food, good move. The movement, flow and glow. The value, how are you valuing your time and your energy? What is your perspective on life? Is it one of gratitude? What are your words? Do your words and your intention match? Do they pair together? Because it's a different vibration when they do. What are your thoughts? What are your actions? Always choose love and the collective consciousness. What are you contributing to it? Great thing always, being and breathing, being and breathing, being and breathing, and vocal toning. We did the exercise earlier, And there's so much more we could go into tonight in terms of activities. But hopefully you found a couple of things that you'll be able to adopt into your own practices that'll be helpful. Thank you so much for joining me. If you would like to keep in touch, you can find me here. I've typed my name out. I'm on Facebook, on Instagram, although I will tell everyone I'm not super active on them. But if you sign up for updates on the website, I'm going to try to get better about those. And I have a lot of videos on YouTube that I am working to put up. So there's a lot of sound videos. There's some other talks and a lot of interviews I've done with people too. So thank you so much for sharing your time and your energy tonight.